says recording on my screen, so it should be recording.
You would hope so. Hey guys, Andre here, back with Bobby for.
Oh yeah.
We're doing a socially distant one. I'm doing a rapid COVID test, rapid 30-day test, so I should know about Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Until then, I have a couple beach parties to hit up.
By the time the vaccine swings around, you should know.
I should know it'll be post-election. You know, I'm not going to let it slow me down, though. There's a couple raves, a couple Candyman screenings.
Oh.
But today we're talking about Candyman.
Candyman.
2 film directed by
Bernard Rose.
Bernard Rose. By any other name.
I have no idea who that person is, but I do know that I do love this movie. It holds a special place in my heart.
Yeah, you chose Candyman as one of the ones that you wanted to talk about, and I always had a special place in my heart for the idea of Candyman, but I didn't grow up with it the way that you did.
You know, I don't know if we've ever discussed this on our BrassReel reviews, but I don't think that you grew up with horror films like I did.
Not in the same way.
As far as the allowance that I had, I was able to watch. Like, I didn't really have any restrictions. There was 1 or 2 things, like if my mom walked in, I knew I better turn this off. I mean, they didn't let me watch everything, but because of my dad, honestly, is why I got to watch the horror films. But yeah, this one was great because it took place in New Orleans, and that's cool. Me being from Louisiana.
So I did rewatch it recently, and it's not New Orleans. It's Chicago.
It is Chicago. You were right.
Yeah, it is Chicago. And I can see why you would think New Orleans.
For some reason, I feel like, is it because maybe it's the Slave Association thing that made me think it was New Orleans?
That could be it. Yeah, because that's his big backstory, right? Is that he was a former slave, right?
Yeah, but then he ends up having an affair with the woman of the house. And then he gets caught. They stab a hook into his hand and then cover him in honey. Like, does it seem like to you that they were just creating that so they could say, and now he has a hook for a hand?
It's interesting. So I didn't know the director, but the writer is Clive Barker, right? Who the original story is by.
Yeah, and actually the story is called The Forbidden.
Right.
So the Candyman was just, I guess, the chant.
Right. I have a feeling that the original idea itself came about from Clive Barker messing with the idea of urban legends, right?
Oh, no question. I mean, especially, it's kind of like the whole saying Bloody Mary in the mirror.
Right. So
this is the Candyman.
Yeah, I remember being like a kid and hearing about Candyman and hearing about Bloody Mary, saying don't say Bloody Mary, 3 times, and don't say Candyman 5 times. And I would never do it. Like it worked well enough where I was always too scared to actually go through with saying it.
I'd
do the number right before. I'd be like, I'm brave to number 4, and then I'll be like, nah, this is for me.
I was even more of a wuss than that, man. I had a friend of mine named Alex Everly that I grew up with, and we had this bathroom that was like one of those it's a real long bathroom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we were both standing in there, and he had this huge mirror lining the sinks, and 2 sinks in there. And man, we got in there and we tried doing it. And I said it one time, and I immediately turned the lights on. I was like, I don't like this.
This isn't fun.
So I was just like, I ain't gonna get killed by doing something stupid.
Right. They told me not to do it, and now here I am doing it. For me, it was wrapped up. Just the title of Candyman, the idea of Candyman was wrapped up in those urban legends I heard growing up as a kid. The campfire story everybody tells about the guy with the hook for an arm.
Sure. Scraping against the top of the car. And
right. The one everybody knows. Watching the movie now, it kind of feels like the movie's just like an amalgamation of a bunch of different. Is this an actual urban legend, or is that what Clive Barker did? Did he just combine, I'm going to take a little bit of Bloody Mary, and everybody's heard that story about the guy with the hook for an arm, and especially probably in places like New Orleans, there's a bunch of ghost stories of angry, vengeful, spirits of slaves.
I don't think Clive Barker has ever actually put anything out that wasn't his like creation. He's very much like into creating, like Hellraiser. That's so off the wall.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't think that he's into, or like if you've seen Lords of Illusion.
Yes.
Same thing. It's just it's not a it doesn't seem like a story that you pull and steal. It's very specific.
Yeah, and he Lords of Illusion is a good example too, because in that one he also takes from real life, like the cult at the start of that movie's like sort of Charlie Manson-esque, but it's placed in the desert. There's a whole magician thing. So I could see Barker kind of saying, I'm going to take these different elements and make my own story out of it.
So right now I'm looking at something that says, based on the short story The Forbidden by Clive Barker, it's based on urban legends and folklore, which led to the legend of the Candyman. So yeah, it's completely created by Clive Barker, but pulled from urban legends and folklore.
What's special about the movie for you? Because a couple things really stood out for me.
Well, one, I remember as a kid, I looked at horror movies kind of two ways. There was like, this is going to be a fun horror movie. And even if it gets like, and even if I'm kind of on the edge of my seat and a little tense sometimes, I can have fun with it. Like Child's Play, it's scary, but it is a lot of fun while you're watching, because a lot of it, you're just seeing how well done it is. There's the doll. Halloween, that's a little bit more on the serious tone, to where it's kind of like...
Starts serious, and then as the movies go on, it gets...
Well, sure, same thing with Freddy, but even then, Freddy had this sort of pop culture pizzazz to it.
Right.
That when you watch it now, it feels very 80s. You can watch Halloween, and after about 10 minutes, you kind of forget you're watching a 70s film, because just the way it makes you feel. And so this movie was on that level of... Like, Clive Barker doesn't play with his content. Like, he doesn't just go safe with it. Like, he gets in there. And so the Candyman, instead of the like urban legend being the thing that was to warn teenagers the dangers of having premarital sex or all that stuff, doing drugs, this was like warning adults about the afterlife. It was way deeper and more mature than just the Man with a Hook.
It's an interesting movie because the protagonist isn't who you usually see as like a horror movie protagonist. Like I think she's a grad student writing her thesis. Virginia Madsen?
Madsen, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, and that was at the time where she was really attractive.
Yes. And it might be because I became aware of her as an actress when she was older. But when I was first watching this movie, I was watching her as if she was not like a student, but like an older like academic. And I guess maybe that's partially because she's married to a professor there at the university.
And he seems to be even older than her in the movie.
Yes. And I was like, this is kind of an interesting protagonist for a horror movie like this, because, it's not the ditzy teenager. It's somebody who's kind of like an authority figure who's writing, a piece, and who's a researcher, and who has their own apartment and is married. And this isn't just for, kids. This is trying to scare adults also.
I think it was solely trying to scare adults because it knew it was going to scare kids. Like, It didn't even have to try to do that with the whole chanting thing.
Yeah. Any horror film that you can walk away with a game afterwards is going to be successful. Like
Freddy, yeah, it kind of got to me in the fact that what if somebody could get you in your dreams? But at the end of the day, after especially I saw like part 2 and stuff, it just got so over the top that it was just more of a fantasy story. Jason, Friday the 13th, I always just like, if I would go camping with my friends growing up, it'd be like, let's run out of the tent and get back fast. You never know, Jason will be out there. But it never kept me awake. Things like Candyman would keep me awake at night because my brain would start reeling. And every time I went to the bathroom, I would think about it. Mm-hmm. That's how it affected me, because it was more adult themed.
That's right. And it's got some like heavier themes too, because it's dealing with like the poverty that's in, what's the name of the neighborhood again?
Cabrini Green.
Yeah, and so it's dealing with that whole question, and you have this white grad student who's coming in there and trying to like tell these black people who actually live there what their neighborhood is about and why the Candyman exists. And there's a lot more.
And they end up beating her up.
Right, exactly. By one of the gang leaders who like says he's Candyman, right?
Yeah.
Which goes along with her theory, and she says, actually, like, there is no Candyman. It's just these people live in such a terrible neighborhood that they take on the idea of Candyman. Kind of like this character isn't really listening to the other people, right? She's telling them about their own neighborhood. And maybe it's kind of a comment on that of like, this is what happens all the time. So there's
look at the uneducated white woman.
Yeah, the overeducated white woman telling
right.
The things that what she thinks is our neighborhood's all about when she doesn't really have any clue, right? She's trying to
she's truly like she's in the dark. Actually, she just thinks she knows.
And I looked it up, and that neighborhood is a real neighborhood.
Cabrini Green is?
Yes. I think at this point it's been like just completely gentrified, and now it's just like a suburb extension of Chicago. But if that's part of the short story or if that was changed for the script, I think it was chosen really specifically because the original neighborhood, the whole draw of it was city projects, so very cheap housing, but it was in the middle of a bunch of kind of affluent white areas. So whereas like other crime-ridden areas of Chicago, people didn't talk about so much, even though they were worse, this one was right next door, so people talked about it a lot. The projects were first built, and they kind of bring this up in the movie, where she's talking about, actually, like, my apartment used to be part of the projects, and then they just, like, slapped a new coat of paint on it and did a couple little things to make it nicer. I think a little bit of it might be over my head, but it seems like they're trying to bring in some, like, social issues into the movie, too.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me because Clive Barker really is a smart guy.
Yeah.
Now, I know he's from overseas. I don't know if he's British or what, but I mean, he's definitely not from here originally.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you think of places that are like Liverpool, a lot of New York and a lot of places that are big cities over here are just kind of doing it later than other places overseas have already been doing it as far as the way of living. Italy, there's some terribly poverty-stricken places in certain areas of it. France, you think of Paris, France and stuff, what you see on the movies and stuff, but man, there's some dark places in France,
Yeah. No, it's true.
So who knows? He may have been pulling from like that side of it, and they just adapted it to an American story. I'm just speculating.
No, yeah, definitely could be. So we have this protagonist who's kind of different for a horror movie because she's a little bit older, a little bit more educated. Then we have a antagonist, Candyman. Well, I mean, for one thing, he's black, which is uncommon. Like, I'm trying to think, like, of big horror icons. There's Candyman.
Well, and Tony Todd, who is Candyman, is kind of a Final Destination guy.
That's right. Yeah.
But they more or less just find ways to use him throughout the series. Just like most horror movies like this, where you're developing a really awesome character as a killer, you're rooting for him. You're not hating him. You don't. I mean, even though it's inevitable.
You kind of are, especially as you figure out his like backstory.
Especially when you figure out his backstory. Then you're like, you know what? Screw all those people.
Yeah. Forget Virginia Madsen or whatever her name is.
And they make you hate her professor boyfriend anyways in the movie. So when he gets it, you're like, yeah.
That's right. Go back to Sideways.
Is that where you first saw her?
I think that's the first time I noticed her as an actress. I'd seen, I think, scenes of Candyman growing up when I had, the living room to myself and I could go to the horror movies.
Sure, yeah. You had a little tighter leash on it than
that's
me.
That's right.
And yeah, so I was already 11 years old at this point.
Right.
So, I mean, I was approaching junior high. So, this was right at the time I was actually really starting to not be afraid of these movies, really get into them.
And right when, kids that age really start to get into them. 11, 12.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Tony Todd's great, but it is kind of an interesting movie because there's the whole, the protagonist is different, the antagonist is different. Candyman, he's both very, in terms of his like motivations, he's very simplistic, but he's also like, it's hard to tell what he wants. It's not like Freddy Krueger, I'm trying to get revenge against the parents who murdered me. Is it just he doesn't want people to know about his existence?
Oh, I don't think that. I think that it's sort of a kind of like Freddy is the more he's talked about, the more he flourishes. And I think that he likes it. But again, I'm not sure exactly why or who's got him up to it, but I do feel like that he was wrongfully slaved, just like any person was wrongfully slaved. She was doing something bad by cheating on her husband and being an infidel with him. And then, so it seems to me with Clive Barker and the way he likes to associate with like the other side and Satan and all that stuff, hell, it seems to me that this is sort of like Candyman's kind of like a Zamil, like one of Satan's helpers, like, but just another conduit, kind of like the way we were talking about New Nightmare, how this was just like a version of evil that was representing itself. I feel like that's kind of Candyman too. It preys on temptations. It preys on curiosity.
Yeah, there's definitely that sense of manifestation of some sort of evil. You know, I found it difficult to tell, does he want to be brought out into the light or does he not want to? And then the other interesting thing is his relationship with the Virginia Madsen character, where like it feels sort of romantic at times.
Yeah, it does. But again, I'm with you. I don't know what they're trying to do as far as, one, he's wanting somebody to take the blame for the murders.
Right.
And essentially she does.
She does.
But does she? Because her character is in this new Candyman.
Right. Now, if I recall correctly, isn't she at least supposedly killed at the end of the film?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, like, what are they doing with that? I'm curious. She's supposedly killed, but now she's Candyman. Or Candy Woman.
Candy Woman. Well, the other different thing about this is usually, you know, she's kind of set up, like, a lot of these horror terms and tropes don't really work in this movie. I was going to say, you know, she's the final girl, but like it doesn't feel appropriate to call her the final girl. But she also dies, so like that's also not.
But she survives in an essence,
right?
But at the same time, you know, you're never actually really wanting her to get away from the killer. You're actually wanting her to find out what's going on. You want that egg to be broken, to say it a bad way. Whereas, like in Friday the 13th, or you know, especially with Michael Myers, as much as you like the kills to happen, as far as the final girl, you're like, get the hell out of there.
Right.
You're not like that in this movie. You're more like,
let's see where this goes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think her character's like that. His character, it's all very ambiguous.
And I think it's a testament to the movie that, you know, as we're talking about it, we're both like, it's really great. And like the atmosphere is fantastic. And also the music is so good. Very
great theme that's very recognizable. It sucked. There's only been one good Candyman movie so far.
I was going to ask you about that, but what I was just going to say really fast is there's so much to like about the movie that even though you and me are sitting here being like, wait, why is he doing this? And does he want to be found out? Does he not? Is this thing with Virginia Madsen romantic? Maybe it's kind of like, you know, a reincarnated version of that relationship he had back when he was alive. What are they trying to say about, you know, white people talking about black culture or you know, that whole hornet's nest of a discussion? And we don't know, but the movie still holds up and is really good, entertaining, and scary.
Yeah, well, and I think that's partially due to Clive Barker, because everything you just said, you could say the same thing about Hellraiser.
Yeah, both movies have that feeling of, you know, these characters discovering this dark world, and it's going to be visual.
Other side.
Yeah, that you're not used to seeing. Just that image of her walking into the abandoned room of the projects, their house apartment of the projects, and she walks through, and it's like the face of Candyman. She goes through the mouth.
Through the bathroom deal. And
So it all works, and it kind of works because you're sort of like that character asking the questions of like, what is going on here? And maybe kind of like urban legends, like you don't need to know all of the facts.
Well, I think sometimes the unknown is some of the scariest.
Yes, and you're put in that position of being a character who's kind of discovering this strange thing as it's happening to her.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny, I never thought about him sort of like maybe rekindling are romanticizing his relationship with that other girl through Virginia Madsen. I never thought about it that way, which that actually makes a lot of sense.
Kind of like a Dracula type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got this Blu-ray of Candyman, which is really cool. I showed this on my Friday the 13th unboxing, but it's got this thing to where, the same thing. You can pull the cover out and then turn it around.
Yeah, the
eye. And then when you do that,
is the cover I remember.
Yeah, so I think that's the one that was like in the theaters.
Okay.
And then I think when it came to video, they did a lot of like stuff like that, but even maybe later, like on DVD. But I think this was the original cover right there.
Poster.
Which it's great, and I remember seeing this in Silence of the Lamb all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are those movies?
Right.
Silence of the Lamb, there's a moth on there, there's no lamb. Candyman, there's a bee on an eyeball.
No candy.
I mean, I guess I get it with the honey and the bee, but yeah, I love this movie, man. And it definitely, it's so funny that for some reason I always thought it was New Orleans, and I've even watched it recently. And I'm just like, I still thought it was New Orleans the whole time I was watching it. And we were talking about the similarities I felt that this and Child's Play had. And then you were like, maybe it's because they're Chicago. Well, there you go.
It's also funny how like our memories of a movie change them for us. Last time when we were talking about New Nightmare, I was saying, I remember this being more of a sequel. And then I had to like readjust what this movie actually is to like what my memory of this movie was.
Yeah, you had to just basically rewatch it again.
Yeah, true.
That's the great time about Halloween, man, and the holidays is you get to rewatch stuff. Christmas, it's much more of a, let me just rewatch the ones I watch.
Right.
Halloween, I actually don't rewatch all the same ones. There's a few that I'll watch no matter what, but most of the time I like to use it as an exploration time.
Yeah. Starting in September, it's just horror films all the way down.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it's actually I'm not there yet, but I can see it approaching to be like, I'm almost approaching getting tired of horror. It happens every Halloween.
Yeah.
But I was going to talk about these sequels real fast to Candyman.
Well, I was going to ask you because I know the Jordan Peele movie we would have already seen had there not been coronavirus.
And Halloween Kills.
As I understood it, that was supposed to be a direct sequel to this movie, right?
Yes.
So they're doing the Halloween 2018 thing.
Yeah, everybody's doing that now. But did you hear about, not to get off target, but did you hear about Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Yes, somebody of note is making it, right?
Maybe. All I know about it is that it's the same thing they're doing with this new Candyman they did with the Halloween. They're making it take place right after the original. They already did that with the last Texas Chainsaw movie. It's like, what the? I mean, I don't know.
Most unpopular videos so far.
Well, I can't get excited about it when I know that you're jumping on a bandwagon. It's hard for me to get pumped up when I know the Candyman one. For it to be like the second one after Halloween to kind of jump on that bandwagon, it seems proper, and the Candyman one was the only one that was worth a damn anyways.
Halloween also had a great director coming in saying, okay, I'm going to do this again, and the original creator coming back and doing the music.
And overseeing the story, basically giving his okay.
Right, and I'm going to do the music again, and some of the original actors coming back. And Candyman had Jordan Peele coming on, so I think that was also part of the reason people got excited. But just like, hey, we're doing a sequel to the original. Okay, you're doing the Halloween thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly, I'm not fully sold on Jordan Peele. Like, he's not in my eyes like, oh, Jordan Peele's doing it, awesome. I love the feeling of Us, and I liked the way I was feeling when I watched it. But as soon as I got to the end, it killed it for me.
Did you like Get Out?
Get Out was great. I loved Get Out. I thought that was solid all the way through. Like, the ending made it better for me.
I liked Get Out a lot as well. I liked Us a lot. I think up until it was kind of the ending for me too, where, I understand that the movie's, supposed to be kind of symbolic and metaphorical, but it felt too much just idea over actual execution at the end.
Yeah, because it wasn't executed. It was kind of like a comic book translated straight from paper to the screen. You got to manipulate it first.
And he's writing it or co-writing it and producing it, but he's not directing it, correct?
I don't even think he's writing it. I think he's just producing it. I could be wrong, but he's definitely not directed. It's directed by a girl.
The trailer
she's already
promising.
Yeah, no, the trailer looks really good, and it's gotten pretty good reviews, but it's also gotten mixed reviews, whereas some people are like, because I think it's going to be that. I think it's going to be kind of a polarizing film.
Right.
Whereas Halloween Kills is getting phenomenal reviews across the board. Like when the screenings, people are like, it's like Halloween on acid.
It's such a strange time in terms of filmmaking because we're talking about reviews for movies that aren't going to come out for like a whole year.
You hear what Jason Blum said?
Didn't he say something like virus or no virus? Like this is absolutely coming out next year.
Vaccine or no vaccine? This is coming out.
There you go.
But anyways, the sequels were like the second one for Candyman. It actually, like, you're watching it halfway through, you're still like, man, this is pretty cool. This is actually one of the, I think, the best kill in the Candyman series is in part 2, where they're at a police station and he's like stabbing him and holding him up, like he's stabbing him with the hook through his body and holding this guy up in the interrogation room, and they're watching it through the cameras, and all you see is this body and floating air with all this blood spewing out of it because they can't see Candyman through the cameras. Like, that was a really cool scene, but the movie shot its wide at that point, because after that, man, not only does it get off the rails, they try to introduce CGI, I mean, way before they had any business. It is hilarious, dude. Candyman at the end.
That like sparked a memory, and also, is it the second Candyman where they actually show the flashback, like they show his backstory?
I honestly can't remember, but hang on, let me check something real fast, because I think there might be a chance that Candyman 2 takes place in New Orleans.
Oh.
Yep, there it is. That's where it messed me up.
Candyman 2 is in New Orleans?
Yeah, the first sequel to the popular Clive Barker horror film, Candyman, moves its setting in the sequel from Chicago to New Orleans.
There it is.
That at least makes me feel like I'm not stupid.
How many sequels have there been?
There's been 3 from what I know of. If there's been a 4th one, I really don't know of it, but it's pretty much, I think it's 3. The third one's called Day of the Dead.
Okay. And didn't that come out like way after?
I don't know about like way after, but it was not right after. It definitely, this one was a straight to DVD release.
Okay.
Still had Tony Todd in it, but it's a Skinamax flick, dude. It's got a softcore porn star as the lead girl in it. It's total like softcore porn the whole way through. I think it's a softcore porn director. I mean, it's.
Oh gosh. This is the second one already?
The third one.
Oh, the third one. Okay.
The second one tries to go for a cool story. It just gets so bad in the end, and then the CGI just really takes you out of it. Now, when I say it's bad, I'm talking like it looks like a cartoon. Bad.
And that was probably made like, I don't know, 94 or something. Watch Jordan Peele shock us all, and it's actually a direct sequel to Candyman 3.
Why are you drawn to this?
I'm hoping to spread the story.
We don't follow the storylines of 1 and 2. It's just Candyman 3, Day of the Dead.
Oh no, Candyman 3 was in 99.
Okay.
So Candyman 2, Farewell to the Flesh, is in 95.
Clive Barker's stuff is often pretty off the wall, and pretty explicit. So maybe that's what they were thinking, is like, we'll just take some of those Clive Barker things and push them in the next 2 movies.
Yeah, and then we'll try to make it sexy and risque too, I guess. But yeah, do you remember who Donna D'Errico is or was?
No.
She was, I think, a like Sports Illustrated / Playboy model. But yeah, she's the main star in this outside of Tony Todd. But yeah, Donna D'Errico.
Actor? No. Playboy swimsuit model? Yes. That's who we want for our movie.
Look, baby, you're going to be a star. All you got to do this movie is for next to nothing and come sit on my couch. So yeah, Candyman, the first one, I love it, man. I think it's great. I think that the Virginia Madsen is a great actress. I think the story is rich. It makes you like actually interested. Doesn't seem like a cheap thrill. It actually seems like a horror movie that belongs.
One more thing I wanted to mention, if you're getting burnt out or tired of horror films and kind of want to see something a little bit different, this definitely does that in a lot of different ways. But the other thing I realized while watching it is it doesn't seem like a tame film at all, because it's dealing with like very harsh, horrible things. In a lot of ways, the movie's an outlier. But yeah, I definitely recommend it. I'm excited about the 20 now 2021 sequel coming next year.
I'm with you, and I'm looking forward to seeing it as well. Any of that, honestly, at this point, I'm looking forward to seeing anything.
It's a new movie? Great.
Well, and it's going to be quality. It's not going to be a video on demand. That's another thing. I'm curious to see how many movies we let our criticisms down a little on, as far as like not so hard on these movies because it's just good to see something in the theater, or it's good to see a AAA quality film being put out. You know, like we're going to be not so hard on movies for a little while, I think.
Yeah, I think Bill and Ted 3 got a little bit of that. People were like, hey, it's a lighthearted comedy movie. I have no criticisms. It's a new movie. I'm fine with this. Yeah,
and maybe that's why Hubie Halloween works so well for me. And honestly, I do think that it was really funny. It was stupid, but it was funny.
Hubie, I still haven't finished it, but somewhat ashamedly laughed a couple times.
Dude, that part where he was that killed me, man. That was just hilarious.
There's a couple moments.
And those guys aren't stupid idiots. Like, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, yeah, Candyman. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's brass tack this bad boy.
Brass tacks. Pet peeve.
Pet peeve? Maybe that it wasn't gory enough. Okay. I like to see some gore, and something like this. It makes with a guy with a hook for a hand. I want to see some more gore. How about you?
I don't think I have one. Maybe a little bit more clarity on the motivations, but even there, like, part of me thinks, you know, maybe if we were given more clarity, it wouldn't be as effective. I was gonna say Virginia Madsen's husband, but I think he's supposed to be a pet peeve. I think you're supposed to.
Oh yeah, you're supposed to not
dislike
like
that character.
Yeah, for sure.
Spin-off. Would you be interested in a spin-off to this? I guess the new one kind of is a spin-off to this.
Yeah, I mean, now when you say spin-off, you mean like something with a side character that's not Candyman, or just a sequel?
I guess we can just do a sequel.
Yeah, no, I'm always interested in the Candyman sequel.
Yeah.
I always want to say, I think it's a character that I'd like to see. I don't want to see it go away like Michael and Jason and Freddy. I'd like to see other interpretations of it. I don't necessarily want him to beat a dead horse with it, but if there's a good Candyman story to be told, I want one. I like the character.
And I think the character's versatile enough that you could tell a lot of cool, different stories with him.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's definitely a juicy character that wasn't used enough, actually.
Was this derivative or original?
I think it was pulling from something that was derivative and making it original.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It takes ideas and concepts that people probably know and know pretty well, but then it makes it into something of its own.
That's what a great artist does, man. It brushes the dust off of something old and turns it into something it hasn't been before.
Yeah. Is this movie good when watched by yourself?
Yes, I think it's definitely good, if not maybe a little better.
Yeah, you can, turn out the lights, turn the movie on. You'll get a good spooky movie that you can kind of be thinking about while you're watching it. How did you feel right after?
I felt that chill of kind of like an M. Night chill.
Yeah.
Just the fact that she becomes what she is, and she actually is like Candy Woman now, and you're just like, wow. Nobody wins in this movie.
Yeah, no, it ends in a very dark way. I think it ends how the creators wanted you to feel when it ends.
Well, and at that time, there was the non-happy ending didn't really exist. You had stingers.
Right.
You had last-minute things to like get you at the very end and then shut the credits off, but it was still a happy ending.
Yeah.
But for this one to truly end on a nope, not happy.
Unhappy, now leave the theater.
And I like that with horror films, man. Give me that.
It just reminded me, in some ways, talking about how 90s New Nightmare was, this kind of feels like a 70s style horror film made in the 90s. Like, I'm thinking, specifically like Rosemary's Baby. Because Rosemary's Baby ends in that same, and everything is terrible, the end.
Yeah, and maybe, in the sense that there's not a whole lot of kills, actually, and it's a lot of dialogue leading up to.
Right. A lot of it's more about kind of mood and investigation.
Music.
Yeah.
Hypnotic a little bit.
If you haven't seen Candyman before, just be prepared to want to look up the soundtrack after you're done.
Curious to see what the music's going to be like in the new one. If they...
Yeah, hopefully they bring back at least the theme.
Yeah, I'd like them to do some... I like it when they do stuff like that. They keep some familiarities, but then they make new stuff.
Yeah. Was this... did it need to be made?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I think for something that stands as long as it did, because I mean, I'm not gonna say that everybody knows the character of Candyman, but I think a lot of people do.
And have you ever seen? There's a documentary on Shudder called, I think it's called Horror Noir.
I haven't. That's one on my list. I know exactly what you're talking about. I can see the cover in my mind.
Yes, and it kind of goes through like the history of horror films, depictions of like black people.
Mm-hmm.
How there's the whole trope of like the black guy dies first, and it's really interesting because there's moments where you're like, I'm learning things because I don't have that perspective, and it's kind of cool that there's that black people got their own Freddy Krueger.
For sure. I think that's one of the coolest.
Icon.
That's one of the coolest things I was saying in the beginning, as far as it's a shame that he wasn't used more, because he is sort of a horror icon.
Yeah.
At Halloween, you see Candyman decorations or the character. I mean,
it's got that look with the skull, the skeleton.
Yeah. He's got his place in the community.
Apparently, Tony Todd actually had those bees in his mouth too.
Oh yeah.
Made for art or money. For Tony Todd, he just loves the taste of bees.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, fur.
Don't pay me anything, but how many bees can I put in my mouth?
Yeah, I actually didn't know that. I thought you were making a joke.
No,
but you really did put the bees in there.
Yeah.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because I've got this special features right here, and there's a lot of great behind-the-scenes stuff on it, but it's a lot of commentary.
Yeah.
There's a lot of interviews with certain people about the makeup effects and all of that, but it doesn't have that awesome, like, sweet up behind-the-scenes making of that you want.
Yeah.
It's got a Clive Barker about how he created the character, but like on set, you know what I mean? It just doesn't have anything good like that.
Netflix and chill?
I'd say no. Now, because it's too much like New Nightmare, and like we were saying, New Nightmare is not really a Netflix and chill, so I'd say no.
Yeah, same. And then Parent Watch.
No. I don't think...
I don't think we gotta elaborate too much more. Just, no.
Yeah, like my stepdad says he likes horror movies sometimes, but I don't think he likes it. I don't think his brain likes to go into a spot like this. I think he doesn't mind watching like a Freddy or a Michael or something like that, or Jason.
Yeah.
But something like this goes a little bit too, it makes you think about stuff you may not want to think about.
Yes. No, I agree with that. It's got that element that that a lot of 70s horror films had, like The Exorcist or Rosemary's Baby, where like it makes you feel like this movie might be dangerous.
Sure, yeah. Like there's, if you believe in curses, if you believe in the power of scripture and all that, you might feel uncomfortable with this movie in the room. You might feel like it's tainted with something.
Yeah.
Like it's a Necronomicon.
That's right. Do you have any final thoughts on Candyman?
I am excited about the new one coming out, and whenever we do get to see it. I do wish they would have made more, but I do think when this one's solid enough on its own to be a legacy in the horror film community.
With Candyman, you have to say it 5 times consecutively, right? The fact that we've been saying it all of this time does not...
No, and don't you have to do it in the mirror?
Okay, I'm just making sure we're safe.